Today's video is about the basics of keto. So if you're new, this is going to start you off correctly. But even if you're a veteran like me, we all need refreshers every once in a while, to keep us on track. Because when we've done something for a really, really long time, sometimes it's hard for us to have the good perspective on what we should be still doing and what we shouldn't be doing. And we think we know what it is, right? We know keto, and that can set us up to make mistakes because we aren't doing the simple things like perhaps tracking that would keep us focused on the actual main goal, which is keeping our carbs low. So I actually want to start with carbs because I think it's one of the ones that caught me off guard. When I started my journey, I come from a science background, and so I know that carbohydrate and sugar are two words for the same stuff. And yet somehow, when I think back on ever being told to get sugar out of my life or, it didn't occur to me to look at all the different places that sugar is. So, and I think that's because I wasn't allowing myself to see all the different words that are sugar. So let's look at some of those words. So we have carbohydrate, and sugar, obviously. And then we can break down those words break down those sugars into fructose, galactose, and glucose. Now, fructose and a glucose make a sucrose molecule. And then you have a galactose coming together with a glucose to make a lactose molecule, I believe. But they can all they can intermingle with each other. Two glucoses, I believe, make a maltose. So different sugar molecules, simple sugars, can collect together and make a disaccharide, and then you can get a bunch of them together. So, for example, if you have a big string of them, we can call that starch, right? And or also fiber. And starch and fiber behave differently in the body, right? Starch, very easy to break down by the body, and we get access to that glucose so easily. That's a bunch of glucose molecules. But then you can have a bunch of glucose molecules making up some fiber, and it's much harder for us to pull those apart. And I feel like harder doesn't mean impossible. First of all, let me just back up there. Harder doesn't mean impossible. But all the different ways that in nature sugar molecules combine and that we interact with them, I think was the first part for me that caused me to see where maybe I got a little confused and I wasn't necessarily listening to the advice of lower the amount of sugar in your diet in the way that I could have been earlier on in my life. Because obviously I wasn't looking at all these foods. Now, can I just point out that when you talk about packaged foods, we have a different problem that shows itself, because when it comes to packaged foods, then we also have the issue where companies will change the name of things to suit their needs. So we might look at a package and it says syrup or nectar or, organic cane sugar. How is that different than table sugar? And so we need to understand that when we're trying to read our packaging and look at our labels and do what's best for our health, we need to be able to pick out every single one of those words for sugar that actually mean sugar. So that's the first thing I want to say. And I'm not really sure how many people have taken the time to really break that down, right? And be simple with it. I know there's another one I'm missing. Oh yeah, fruit. Oh my goodness, fruit concentrate is another one I found out means sugar. There's so many of them, Wellness Warrior. And this is part of the reason I want to talk about this today. So I want to know if that was new to you, right? Were you one of those people like myself that when your doctor told you, or maybe your friend or a trainer told you to cut the sugar out so you could lose weight? Were you actually saying, oh yeah, that means I need to take rice out and bread and pasta and potatoes? Were those the foods that came to your mind when someone said that to you? Or were you more like me where you're like, yeah, I need to cut out the chocolate bars and the ice cream, right? The obvious sugary things. And I think which goes to another part of the story, which is that sweet factor. Like, we think when we hear the word sugar, we're expecting whatever it is that we're talking about to be sweet. And because we're expecting it to be sweet, when we don't see a sweet thing, or it's like, so for example, when the thing in front of us isn't sweet, we think that that can't be part of what we're supposed to be being mindful of, or we're supposed to be moderating, right? Part of the reason I find it's so hard to use moderation when we're talking about weight loss, because you have to moderate things that you don't even know are causing a problem. So anyways, okay, I'm getting off topic. The second thing I want to talk about is ketosis. And to get that kicked off, I'm going to start with showing you a little video.
You can take a newborn baby and the baby can breastfeed or bottle feed. And then within an hour, the baby is in a deeper state of ketosis than an adult would be after fasting for a full day. I mean, that baby will be at 2 millimolar ketones in an hour. And an adult, and for me, if I want to get to 2 milli, I got to fast for like 36 hours to get to that point. And I mean, so if there's any natural state, kind of back to our conversation a moment ago, it is clearly that a natural state is a state of ketosis. We are such totally unique creatures where we are the only land-based mammals born obese and the only animal who has a brain that is larger than the birth canal, much to mother's chagrin. But that means we have these very big, hungry brains and all of this chubby, adorable baby fat that is just producing ketones like gangbusters to fuel the brain growth. And if you have a baby that is born premature and lacks sufficient adipose tissue, it is much more likely that they're going to develop neurological disorders.
So obviously, what I find really interesting about what he just said is that it's the natural state of the body being in ketosis. We have so many influencers trying to get us to believe that being in a ketogenic state is an emergency state, and that it's harmful and dangerous. We have so many influencers that are trying to get us to believe that we can't stay in a ketogenic state, that we need to cycle in and out. And I want every wellness warrior watching right now, there's a few of you on here I can see, to understand that that's just a trick to get us to need products, right? If we get our body out of the natural state that we were born in, if we get our body in a state where we are carb focused, so we're running on sugar instead. So what is ketosis? Ketosis is the state where your body is using fat for fuel. We have fat on our bodies always. The thinnest of thin people still has fat on their body. Your body won't allow you to have zero. But more importantly, as Dr. Bickman points out, the brain wants to run on fat. You're born in that state, and it's the healthiest state to make sure that our children's brains mature to the best of their ability. Part of the reason I'm starting with this, Wellness Warrior, is that I want anyone who jumps into this video to fully understand that not having our children in a ketogenic state is a mistake, as we just saw there, right? That's the healthy state that we should be in and that we can stay in easily if we weren't eating too much carb. So to get our body into ketosis, we have the first part, which is the sugar, right? But the second part is the fat. So I want to finish the sentence. So the state of ketosis is when you are fueling your body with fat. That means you need to switch from being a carb burner, a sugar burner, to a fat burner. And in order to accomplish that, you need to bring your carbohydrate level down to the number that your body needs it to be. Now, most experts are saying that if you have no metabolic issues, take that baby again and put it in front of us. A baby with no metabolic issues. We know that keto starts at 50 carbs per day, right? I think that's net, 50. So a healthy person, for sure, 50. But even children, probably at low carb, so 125 or less, no problem. They would be very likely in ketosis as long as their body is healthy. Now, in my opinion, when I listen to all this stuff, what it says to me is our children should be 50 or less. Why? Just because I can be in a state of ketosis and low carb state, 125 or less, it doesn't change the fact that that's still more than what a typical body would need to be in a ketogenic state, 50 grams of carbs or less. And so, like from the doctor's perspectives, like if you were no metabolic issues, 50, you'll be fine. Children are smaller than us, right? So smaller package. And I think that children, we start our story off and we go forward in time. The more carbohydrate I'm letting in without knowing much about my personal reaction to carbohydrates, I think the more dangerous it is to let a lot in, right? That's just me being logical, right? Like if I don't know how I'm going to react to some certain kind of, let me make this really simple for you. If I'm trying a new meal, which I did the other day, I tried a new food. I was talking to someone I did an interview with. I can't remember their name right now, but I want to say Sharon, but I'm not 100% sure if it was Sharon. But she talked to me about a new food, and honestly, I bought some, and I could have totally cooked a serving. What did I do? I cooked a quarter of a serving, maybe even a fifth of a serving. I can't remember. It was like really small amount. And the question is, why did I do that? Why not just cook a serving? What if I don't like it? See, in my mind, if I cook it and I don't like it, that's me throwing away all that healthy food, because it was scallops, I believe is what it was called. See, they're so new to me, I don't even remember the name of it. It's scallops. Yeah, that's what it was. And I wanted to just try a small amount, see if I liked it before I cook a larger amount. Because I know for sure if I don't like it, it's scallops. I'm going to find a family member or a friend who'll take the rest of the package off my hands, and whatever. I give it away because it's healthy food. But I'm not great with seafood. And so I did a little test. And I think that we should do that for everything. So if I'm living my life, it makes more sense to me that when we know how damaging sugar can be, that I shouldn't be testing on my little small child large amounts of carbs when I can give my child small amounts. And I feel like I'm going off topic here again, but I want us to understand what Dr. Beckman said in that video and understand how healthy it is for us to be in that state. And he said a lot more in that video. That's just a little small excerpt for you to understand that ketosis is the healthiest state that we can be in, right? And our body, when we are in a ketogenic state, allows us to use sugar where sugar should be used and use ketones where ketones should be used. And it uses them that metabolic flexibility that everybody's chasing when we're healthy and eating a ketogenic diet. We don't have to worry about that. But if we are struggling and forcing ourselves to do things that our body, so try to be healthy on a carb-based diet, we struggle with this. There are 12 points that I want to get through today. And if I spend 20 minutes on each one, this is going to be a long video, but I plan to get through them all to Wellness Warrior, because this is that important, that I want you guys to understand that this isn't just about me and it isn't just about weight. This is about our children's health. That's why I'm going back to these basics, and I want to help you guys to see how vitally important this stuff is. So, ketosis is the natural state we should be in. It's our body using fat for fuel. It helps us to keep our body healthy. And of course, it helps us to regulate our weight if we use the energy coming in the correct way and we only allow the right stuff to come in. So let's talk about allowing the right stuff to come in now. Number 3 is tracking. And we can track our macros. So all of them, that would be carbs, protein, and fat. We can track them all. The question is, do you need to? And which ones do you really need to track? But I'm going to say it like this. The number one thing, if you only track one thing that I want you to track, is your carb intake. Why? Because that being too high causes so many problems. So, if you have no metabolic issues and you are healthy and you have no pain and your weight is good and no medical anythings, 50 grams of carbs or less is what I think you all should be aiming at, because that's what is a ketogenic diet. Like, that's the standard definition. And I think that there's no reason for any person who cares about their health to go above 50. I'm just going to say it out loud. I don't see the reason. You might disagree with me. That's fine, but I don't see the reason. The second thing that I think, if you're going to track anything you should track, it would be protein. Why? We don't get enough protein. And the more that I'm eating healthy, the more I'm learning that we don't get enough protein. And I have a video coming out really soon, so you probably want to subscribe, talking about an experiment that I'm doing with my protein intake. And I'm actually kind of shocked at the results I'm getting. So tracking your protein to make sure that you get more than the recommended dietary minimums. You want to get more. I don't know how much more. This is the part that kind of sucks. Those recommendations that we get, I've learned, are the minimum amounts that we're expected to intake to be healthy. The minimum amounts. So, and I think I put that out in anyways, there's a video coming out with that information as well. That's not the amount that makes us thrive, that makes us the strongest possible that we can be. So even these numbers that I thought were the numbers turn out that they're not. So I want you to track protein, but again, these aren't minimums. You should be trying to, I think what Dr. Westman said has really helped me, but I'm even adding to it what Dr. Berry said. So Dr. Westman talks about eating to satiation, and for sure that helped me because it took away this feeling I had that there should be a certain amount on my plate. Like, I put how much I want on my plate, and if I want more, I get more, and I don't have any question marks anymore about taking seconds. But the flip side of the coin is, if I'm full, I'm full, and I just stop eating. So now let me play with that word full for a second. When I'm doing a keto style diet, I eat to satiation. So I don't actually get to full. I get to, I'm not hungry anymore. And it's crazy to me how much food that still is. But yeah, I eat till I'm not hungry anymore. And I know about how much to put on my plate to make that happen. When I'm doing a carnivore style diet, I try to eat until I'm slightly full, which is different. And that's coming from Dr. Berry. And Dr. Baker, I believe, said it too. It's different. You like the biggest difference, I believe I learned. So the biggest difference in why we do those two things, I didn't learn from either of those two doctors. I learned it from Dr. Bickman. He was the one that pointed out that if you have both carbohydrates and protein in a meal, you will be able to eat more because carbohydrates allow you to eat more. And I don't know what exactly it is specifically doing during the meal that allows that to happen, but it allows you to eat more. Versus when you're eating a purely meat meal, an eggs meal, fish meal, if you were just eating fish, there's a moment where you just get this feeling of, ugh, I can't have any more. And you don't just overeat it. Versus how many times have we seen people overeating, right, on French fries and pasta and rice, and they just keep eating. Somehow we can do it when it comes to these things. So tracking your protein, I think, is the second most important thing to get enough in, because we need to teach ourselves now to eat until we get that ick feeling. And that ick feeling, that takes a while to happen. And that's what I noticed with myself. Like, obviously, I'm talking about eating not lean protein. I'm talking about eating protein with the accompanying fat that comes with it. And I noticed for myself that, yes, at some point I'm going to get that kind of feeling. But it's funny. If there's carbs on the plate, I don't get it. And this is weird because I've tried. I've actually tried to see, like, putting the same amount of meat that I would be like, get to the end and be like, okay, I have had enough. Put that with salad, and somehow I can eat everything that's there. And so I've tried it to see for myself. You guys can do it yourself. Eat a meal that's just meat and just eat until you can't eat no more. Check how much it was. And then do the exact same amount of meat with some salad there and see what happens. I was shocked. So Something for you to figure out for yourself. And the last thing is tracking fat. And so here's what I'm going to say about tracking fat. I don't track fat at all. And yes, obviously, if you overeat fat, you're not going to lose any weight. But why do I not track fat? Well, because I follow these first two ideas that I just talked to you about. So I'm tracking my carbohydrates. I'm keeping them super low. I mean, right now for me, it's once or twice a week that I'm having some carb, and it's always below, I would say always below 10. And then I'm tracking my protein in the sense that I'm making sure I eat enough. And so I've recently learned I have to eat more. So I'm trying to eat more protein. And then the fat takes care of itself. Why does the fat take care of itself? Two reasons. When I was doing weight loss, so when I was in my weight loss trajectory, and eating a healthy ketogenic diet, because I did all my weight loss doing keto, stopping when I was satiated varied, right? Sometimes I could eat a little more, sometimes I ate a little less. And I mean, I could see that in my tracker. I had sometimes where the amount of energy, so if I just use calories just to tell you what's going on there, sometimes I would have days where I was eating about 1,000 calories. And then I would have most of my days, though, that I was eating somewhere between 1,400 and 1,600 calories. And so the question becomes, on those days, actually, I would even say maybe I had a lot of days where I was doing 1,000 to even 1,100. I'd had a lot of days. I think the 1,500 were the exceptions. So let me correct that. But where was the energy coming from that it was allowing me to do all my activities and run around and of course, I had so much energy on my body. I didn't need to overeat the fat, first of all, right? So I didn't need to track the fat because I had enough fat on me that my body was able to make up any calorie difference, if you want to just look at it that way, with what was on me. But another thing that I want to point out, Wellness Warrior, is that I was actually able, in that situation, to have my body, because I was eating 2 meals a day at some points, and then 1 meal a day at some points, my body was actually able also to recycle a lot of what was on me. So when you are in a process of weight loss, yeah, you might end up eating a little bit less, right? And so this is part of the reason when I'm tracking, I feel like the most important thing to track, your carb intake and your protein intake. It so happens that my tracker tracks fat and it tracks calories. So I can go back and check this data, but I was paying zero attention to my fat. And I was paying, as a matter of fact, had I been paying attention to my fat, I might have been scared and I might not have been able to do as well. Because when I went back and looked at my fat, often it was in the red, over. I was over all the time because the meals that I was actually eating were they were healthy keto meals, which means that I was eating the fat that was coming on my meat. So let's talk about fat, number 4, because I want this to be a topic that you understand. There is zero reason to add fat on a ketogenic lifestyle. You're not adding fat. I want you to think about, so for example, if we were to say, oh, I have this color green, right? And so green is made of yellow and blue. You make green. And someone said to you, well, if you want to have, blue, a bluer color, so you add more blue. And that's true. If you took green and you added more blue, you would have a bluer color of green. But another way to do the exact same thing is to have green and remove yellow, right? So if, first, let's say I'm going to mix up some green, and the first time I mix it, I put 50 grams of yellow and 50 grams of blue, and I said, it's green, but I want it to be more blue. I mix up some more, and I make 25 yellow, 75 grams of blue, and guess what? It's going to be a bluer green than it was before. And I can even do 5 yellow, 95, right? And I feel like this is the thing where most of us don't realize that it's not about adding fat. And so we get ourselves in trouble because if I overeat, well, yes, I'm still going to be in trouble. And if I take my normal chicken thighs and then I always am adding extra fat to them while I'm trying to be on a weight loss trajectory, then incoming fat equals my body has fat to use for energy equals there's no reason to take fat from my body, which is very different. And even though my carb count is low, right? So I took my carbs, instead of it being, 300 today, it was 15, let's say. But I still had so much energy come in that my body doesn't have any need to take energy from me. So all the influencers that are telling you to wrap everything in bacon, the influencers that are telling you to make fat bombs and all these things, and that you should be walking around with eggs on you all the time, like, they're putting you to do things that are slightly against your goal. If you take the carbohydrates down and eat enough protein with the accompanying fat, so if I'm eating an egg, I eat the whole egg. So how many eggs would I need to eat to make a meal, right? And you make that amount. If I'm having pork chops, I eat the fat that came with the pork chop. If I'm having chicken thighs, I eat the chicken and the skin and those little bits of fat that are inside, like all of that. If I eat the fat that came along with my protein source, that's more than enough fat. I don't need to add extra fat. I don't need to add MCT oil and all these extra fats. That's not what we need to do when we are in our beginning phases of doing a keto lifestyle. There might be reasons to do it later, and we're going to talk about that. But at the beginning of your process, at the beginning of your journey, if you are, or even if you're in your journey for a while and you're struggling, this might be part of the reason that you're struggling. Because rather than starting keto in a healthy way of just reducing the carbohydrates, we decrease the carbohydrates, but we raise the fat so much that we created a problem. Right? Now, I will say, if you are a person who has been eating lean meats, yes, you're going to add some fat because you're going to stop eating lean meats. That's not going to be helpful, because if I take all my carbs out, but if I don't have normal amounts of fat there, I'm in trouble. But for most of us, when we're doing a standard diet, we're allowing ourselves to eat the fat. So it shouldn't be an issue. Now, the fifth thing I want to talk about is testing, keto testing. Whether you're talking about ketone strips that you urinate on, or we're talking about the breath analyzers and the blood ones. So my question to you is, and you can put it in the comments, or if you're live with me, you can put it in the live. Did you guys use ketone testing? Did you do that? Right? Now, I didn't use any testing because, first of all, I didn't do this for weight loss. I did it for pain reduction. So it was quite obvious to me when it was working because the pain was going away. So I had a very interesting and immediate feedback. But there's like lots of ways that we can tell that keto is working without measuring. So in my opinion, do you need to spend money on fancy tests to know if you're in ketosis? Not really. You don't. The number one thing that you're going to notice, first of all, is that if you're able to stick to your ketogenic lifestyle, so your ketogenic eating for at minimum a week, but maybe up to 2 weeks. If you can hit that 2-week mark, you're in ketosis, right? That's if you were tracking your carbohydrates and know that you have them under 20 and you get to that, chances are you're in ketosis. It would be very, very hard for you not to be. Now, what's interesting to me though, is that you can get into it and then kind of pop back out of it depending on how your body is reacting and how low your carbohydrates actually need to be. So, how would I know if I'm in ketosis? What are other signs? Well, first of all, I'm not chasing carbohydrates. That interesting, simple thing has helped me so many times that anytime I find myself like even just thinking about going to get something off plan, I know somehow I kicked myself out of ketosis. This is back at the beginning, right? And when I would, verify, look in my calculator, and like, this is when I started to realize, wow, at 18, I seem to like not be able, like I'm chasing again. So wanting to eat things that are off plan, once you got to be consistently eating on plan. And I feel like there's so many keto doctors that have a big list of all these things. I'm actually going to maybe refer you to look at their list. But a few more things I will say is that you have some energy, you have mental clarity, and like there are some very natural things. You might end up having like, a breath smell, right? For a little while. That's what the ketone breathalyzer is testing. Your urine might have a smell. That's part of what's being tested on those strips, right? But usually those things go away. So over the long run, like the more accurate one is the blood test, but that's like super expensive. And so, I mean, if you can afford it, hey, why not? If that's what you want to do. But do you need it? No. I would say that for most of us, once we eat on plan and keep eating on plan, we're going to be in that ketogenic state. And that's why tracking is so important. That's why tracking was number 2. If you track, you're going to know. And then you're going to also be able to tell that if you start chasing or whatever, you're going to start to see that, okay, maybe my number needs to be a little lower, because if you're like me, 18 is where I start to chase. And I don't even know if it's lower than that now, because I haven't even tested that. I don't go past 10, like ever. It's not worth it to me to be chasing. I don't find it healthy. And I don't think it's like the thing that we want to be doing is constantly putting ourselves in that position where we are chasing. So the next thing I want to talk about are calories. Like I said, my calculator gave me calories as an output. That's why I was able to tell you guys about what calories I was having. Are you still paying attention to calories? And I hope the answer that you're all going to give me is no. So I'm looking to see what's your answer to that? Are you guys still paying attention to calories? If you are, I want you to understand something. Your body does not understand calories. There is no calorie receptor, as we learned from Dr. Fung. There's no indication from your body that can calculate calories. Your body understands building blocks and ketones and carbohydrates. That's what your body understands. And it uses those things for what they're meant for. So why I don't like us paying attention to calories is, first of all, it makes us scared of fat, because fat is will bring in so much more energy, calorie number, than carbohydrates. So instead of being afraid of carbohydrates, the thing that's ruining my health, instead of being afraid of carbohydrates, the things that is causing my internal organs to be damaged, I'm worrying about fat, which my body would take in and have a much easier time to use, to build me, to fuel me, it's a much healthier thing for my body to be interacting with than these carbohydrates. Not every carbohydrate is the culprit. Can I just point that out? Going back to number 1 for a second. Glucose is a carbohydrate my body expects. It makes it. It knows exactly what to do with it. And a lot of the other carbohydrates get manipulated to be to be used, right? But the one that my body actually is looking for is glucose. It's super, super hard to get just glucose, right? I feel in most plants, you're getting some other types of sugar along with that glucose, right? I think starches are probably the only one where you get mostly glucose. But even at that, you could still, like sweet potatoes, so there's still some like fructose, there's always other things coming. My point. We're so afraid of that calorie number because companies have brainwashed us into believing that the calorie number matters more than what the calories are made up of. Calories don't matter, right? I'm going back to what Dr. Fung says. They don't even matter. We do not burn energy. We do chemical reactions. And so it's the chemical structure of the food we're eating, whether it's a fat or carbohydrate, that chemical structure, or a protein, that chemical structure that determines what my body will do with it. It does not care what a kiln burn is going to do to a piece of steak. It cares how it can use that to build my body, how it can use the fat from that steak to build my cells, and right, all the things and all the chemical processes is going to do with the amino acids and all the stuff, right, to keep me in a healthy place. So I want us to put the idea of calories down altogether. It's irrelevant, right? It doesn't matter. It's not helping you to be in your best place with your body. Now, eating to satiation or fullness, depending on what kind of diet you're doing, and making sure that you have energy is what's more important. It blows my mind how when I was doing a standard diet and eating all the wrong foods and trying to keep my calorie count under 2,000, I was so much heavier and tired and metabolically unhealthy compared to today, where I don't care if my calorie count goes past 2,000. And again, when you see the video coming up, you really should subscribe. I have talk about what my numbers look like. It doesn't make any sense that I weigh what I weigh right now, that I'm feeling as well. The energy makes sense if I'm eating more calories, quote unquote, right? The energy makes sense. But the fact that I'm stable at my weight, that I feel amazing, that everything is, my health is just no pain anymore, that everything is just getting better and better and better and better. Well, I swear, I want you to look at this and really ask yourself if calories makes any sense anymore. And I hope that you come to the same conclusion that I do. It doesn't make any sense. So we're at number 7 now, which are keto replacement foods. The first thing that people do, I know I did it, when they start keto, is start searching. How do you make bread? How do you make pasta? How do you make pizza? How do you make all the things that caused us to be fat? And I want you to understand that I'm not saying don't look them up. I'm not even saying don't make them. I'm saying look at them for what they are, right? I think that if you're making keto replacements to transition yourself from this really unhealthy food that I'm eating right now to a healthier version, to eventually eating only whole foods, then yes, that's what you should be doing. But if you're planning to do keto and keep these foods in your life, more and more research I'm doing, the more I'm understanding that, yeah, unhealthy. I'm very happy that I'm so lazy that I stopped making these foods years ago. Because now what I'm learning about oxalates, and now what I'm learning about just the processed almond flour and all the processed stuff you need to buy to make these replacement foods, we're still eating processed food. And so keto replacements are great transitionally. They're better than store-bought normal garbage. But at the end of the day, we need to see them for what they are. They're still garbage, right? They're still fake versions of the stuff that made us ill. And I'll be honest with you, I've even figured out a recipe for keto pizza. And I'm calling it keto, but I mean, I should actually be calling it a carnivore pizza because it's all meat. It tastes, well, no, it's not all meat. There's tomato sauce. That's why keto pizza. Sorry. Yeah. But it tastes damn good. And I don't make it anymore because I realized if I'm going to make that, it's once in a blue moon. I stopped making it as part of my meal plan, which it used to be. It used to be part of my meal plan. By the way, one of the meals that was 3,000 calories if you do the math, right, was that meal. And I didn't stop making it because it was too heavy I stopped making it because, well, first of all, lazy, but second of all, really, pork chops taste so much better to me now. All the real foods that I eat taste so much better to me now than recreating this thing that I was eating back when, because A, it was tasty and I was lazy. Keto replacement store-bought foods. So now I'm talking about packaged from a company. I want you to see those as equivalent to store-bought normal foods because they're highly processed, super processed, ridiculously processed. And I don't feel like if we're doing our body any kind of service, giving it processed foods. There have to be chemicals in there doing something for this to be stable on the shelf for as long as it's stable on the shelf. And we need to see that, right? So, there's some things we can do at home. We can, grind up some nuts at home and make a nut butter at home. maybe we could even make a nut flour if we have the right kind of processor. But as soon as we start having a bar looking something that says keto on it, or a cookie looking something that says keto on it, that's sitting on a shelf for months, Wellness Warrior, I want you to understand there's no way there isn't some kind of chemical in there causing that stability to happen. And so these keto replacement foods as a transition only, and then we walk away from them. The 8th thing I want to talk about is MCT oil. And this one, I have a kind of love-hate relationship with. I've never used MCT oil, so let me just put that on the table. My love-hate relationship with it has more to do with the benefits that I see that it has for the application that makes sense to me. And that application has nothing to do with weight loss. And that's where I get like this love-hate thing happening. There are a lot of medical conditions where medium chain triglycerides being delivered to the body help the person to do better. And brain issues, epilepsy, like these medical conditions are the ones I'm thinking of, older people with dementia and all. Like there are some scenarios where I've heard about and seen people talk about the results. And to me, I'm like, yeah, bring it on. I think that is of absolutely terrific use for medium chain triglycerides. Everything else, when we're trying to force our body to lose weight, we're trying to speed up our process of getting into ketosis, which, by the way, doesn't work. Dr. Berry had a video about that. I can't find it for the life of me, but he had a video about that it showed clearly that you cannot force your body to get into a ketogenic state by taking MCT oil, because all your body is doing is just showing you what you've put into it. It's not actually in a ketogenic state, right? So what I want us to do is, if you have medical reasons to use MCT oil, sure. If you're using it just because you like the taste of it in your coffee, okay, fine. But do I feel like it's something that is helping, is speeding up a process for you? No, it's an oil like any other. First of all, it's processed. So right away, you're back to that story of, you're taking in a processed something rather than using a whole version. That's one thing. But second of all, my body is going to take that MCT oil that comes in and use it as energy rather than taking the energy off of me. And we just need to understand that's what's going to happen, right? So unless there's a medical reason for you to be doing that, why not let the medium chain triglycerides come from the processing of the fat that's already on your body? Now, another reason that I'm frustrated with MCT oil is that MCT oil, we get it from coconut oil, which coconut oil, you can get a coconut oil that's just pressed. And so it's a natural version and it's much healthier. And now my issue is the cost of MCT oil versus the cost of coconut oil. And like, honestly, it's the same stuff, just processed down. So even for that reason, I'm a little bit like, I wish that companies would stop like labeling things in a way that they could just get more money out of us and really try their best to just help us all to find the best possible way forward to being in our healthiest version of ourselves. And so since we're talking about MCT oil, number 9 is going to be electrolytes, because again, I have a love-hate, like push-pull relationship with electrolytes, which I have tried electrolytes. And for reasons that I'm going to talk about in number 10, I stopped using them. But let's just start with the positives. Electrolytes are great for helping us to get our electrolytes balanced in our body, right? Because when we take sugar out, the same way that when you take salt out, when you take things that hold water out of your diet, then you have you lose a lot of your electrolytes because you start urinating more and etc. So of course, when you take sugar out of your diet, you're urinating more. If you did not ramp up a little bit the salt that you were intaking, you're going to see that difference, right? So that initial water loss, usually it's happening because we've taken sugar down. We didn't ramp up a little bit of salt. And so therefore we lose some electrolytes along the way. My issue, well, the first issue that I can say here before we get to the second one, that's number 10. My first issue with electrolytes is that no two companies are putting out an electrolyte scenario that has the same levels of what in it. So for example, the amount of magnesium in one is not the same as in the other, as in the other, as in the other. The amount of, potassium is not the same as in this one, as in this one, as in this one. So that brings to me now, well, how do I know I'm getting the right amount? How do I know I'm not paying a bunch of money for a bunch of something that I don't need a lot of? And this thing that I need a lot of, it's only like a little bit. And so how do I know? That's my one of my biggest problems. And there was an interview where Dr. Halberg and Dr. Finney were talking, and they pointed out that there's so many things in our human body that we kind of have an idea how much we need. But then Dr. Halberg pointed out that, but for each individual, it's going to be slightly different. So even saying like, oh, this is how much estrogen a woman should have, like, you can't do that, because that number for Violet is going to be different than it is for Mary, than it's going to be for Suzanne, right? And I feel like this is a big point of contention for me, where you have these electrolyte powders and the amount in each of them is different. I don't know which one's the right one, but from what I understood from Dr. Baker, all the micronutrients that we need are in the animals because they ate them for us. And so for me, I think I'm going to back up on those things for now. And only if there's a specific reason will I take an electrolyte. That's my decision. And you guys are going to do what you're going to do, but I want to say that because I want you guys to think about it. Because to me, it just made sense. Now, the second reason that I backed up on electrolytes is the topic number 10, which is the hidden carbs and carb creep. And two places that I saw myself, and these are what I noticed. I don't know if there's other places that have, and I'm not calling the one carb in eggs or the little bit of like the carb in meat. I'm not talking about those carbs. Because I mean, although they are there, so I'm going to say that they are there, but that's not what the carbs I'm talking about. I'm talking about the hidden carbs in spices. The carbs in heavy cream, if you look at the package of heavy cream, it says 0, but it's actually 0.6. So that's why they can write 0, even though back in school, I was taught 0.5 and more, you round it up. Apparently, for food companies, you can round down a 0.6. Anyway, cheese, a lot of cheese say 0 on them when there's carb in there, and electrolyte powders. So these were places where I was seeing carbohydrates, and other places, these like keto snacks and they're the worst. Can I just say wellness way? They're the worst because they try to subtract things that keto doctors are saying they shouldn't be subtracting. For example, they're subtracting sugar alcohols when in the body, our body very swiftly turns a sugar alcohol back into a sugar, and they're subtracting them. So I feel like there were so many different places where there are hidden carbs that I wanted to bring this to your attention, because I want you guys thinking about the fact that everything that you eat, if it has any plant matter in it at all, will have some carbohydrate in it. And then even things that don't have plant matter, like heavy cream, can still have carbohydrate in it. So, yeah, I feel like that a lot of people, if you're really sensitive to carb, and I think about people who need to be near 0, so people like, Michaela Peterson comes to mind. If you're one of those people that's just so reactive to the plants in your world, and maybe it's not the plants, so maybe it's just you're so reactive to sugar, then that 0.6 grams in a tablespoon of heavy cream might be messing with you and you don't even realize it because you don't know it's there. So these are things for you to pay attention to. And the best way you could pay attention to these things, by the way, is to track what you're eating. Because if you're tracking what you're eating, then you're going to be able to look back and see, okay, what made sense, what didn't make sense, what made sense, what impacted me, what didn't impact me. And it's going to help you to be ready to do something different if you need to do something different, right? Maybe I'm going to eat less cheese. That was one of the things that I did. So let's talk about why I ate less cheese. Number 11. There are some whole foods that you are going to want to avoid because those whole foods specifically are introducing toxins above and beyond carbohydrate, like just normal sugar, like issues. The first one I'm going to talk about are fruits. Fruits have fructose in them. The same fructose that's in high fructose corn syrup are in fruits. That's where it comes from, right? High fructose corn syrup is because they usually get it from corn, but you can get it from any source, right? They have the fructose that's in sugar, so table sugar is 50-50, right? Fructose, glucose, and high fructose corn syrup can be anything like 40% glucose up to 60% fructose, to 50-50, right? So it's not a different something. It's interesting that we are not aware that fructose is actually what causes the fruit to taste as sweet as it does. So one of the interesting things that, as I do this research and I learn about this stuff, is like, why is it that potatoes are all sugar, but they don't taste super sweet? And it's because it's glucose, right? Whereas you swap half of that out for fructose and woo, it goes through the roof, right? Like, so I think that one of the things that I want you to understand is fruit isn't the innocent, safe thing that we've been told it is. It's not this healthy thing that we're doing for our body. They called it nature's candy years ago for a reason. It's candy, you shouldn't be eating it, right? So sweet vegetables also fall in that range. Any sweet vegetable you really need to be very cautious about, because the sweeter the vegetable is, so think peppers, think tomatoes, think like tomatoes is a fruit, but think peppers and sugar beets, and like the sweeter the vegetable is, the more fructose is in it. And the other thing that I want to point out is dairy, right? Dairy has galactose. So one of the problems with fructose is that it is 100% metabolized in our liver. Well, I found out that galactose is 90% metabolized in our liver, which is equivalent to alcohol, right? And we are often warned about alcohol, and yet galactose is metabolized the same way. And so many people drink milk, put milk in their cereal, put milk in their coffee. They feed their children milk all the time. They're eating cheese and sour cream and cottage cheese. Like just all these places where there's going to be galactose in these things, because you can't get all of it out. And even that heavy cream, like, it has some galactose in it. Are we being as careful as we should be with dairy? I don't think we are. And so I'm putting it out there to you guys that if you want your health to improve, it's looking at these things, right? These whole foods that we're so sure are healthy for us, that we're being marketed to, that these are so healthy for you. You need to drink your milk for strong bones. If you exercise, your bones will be very strong. Did you know that? Did you know exercise strengthens your bones? Yeah. You don't need to drink milk to have strong bones. Now you do need calcium, but did you know that you can get calcium from drinking bone broth? Sorry, like when you really make a good bone broth and you leave those bones in and let them let go of those minerals. So there's just so many other things we can do. And actually, I believe that, again, that workout that we're going to do and just help ourselves in the ways that are going to keep us as healthy as possible. The 12th thing that I want us to think about when we are trying to be as healthy as possible, when we are trying to do keto the right way, is sweeteners. So many of us believe that as long as there's no calories, going back to that myth that calories don't matter, your body doesn't understand that. So a lot of us believe that as long as there's no calories, then the sweet flavor is harmless. It's not. Sugar is so dangerous, wellness warrior, that your body is on the lookout for it. So as soon as your mouth tastes sweet, your brain sends signals to kick your body into action to protect you from the sugar that it thinks is coming in. So what does that mean for you? I taste some sweet, and my body is already got insulin deployed, and it's storing sugar away for that incoming sugar that isn't actually coming. One thing that I learned in my history of trying to get healthy, I was still drinking diet sodas at the very beginning of this. And what I noticed is that anytime I had a diet soda between meals, right, thinking, oh, there's no calories, I can drink a soda, right? And I had a diet soda between meals. Within half an hour, I was hungry. And interestingly, I was hungry despite the fact that normally I would make it to that meal easily. And the first few times it happened to me, I was like, what the heck? And it took me a little while to figure out that it was the soda, because I wasn't drinking them often, right? It was just once in a while that would happen. And it took me, but thank goodness I wasn't doing it all the time, because I was able to figure it out, because it took me about 2 or 3 times before I realized, oh my gosh, every time I have a diet soda, half an hour later, I am hungry. Wellness warrior, your brain does not want you to succumb to some kind of like sugar-induced toxic reaction. So it's going to protect you by making some space. And if nothing comes in, well, now it's in a problem, right? It is much harder to get some fat out of the storage than it is to get some sugar out of, right? And so your body's going to push you to try to see, well, can you go get something? Now, obviously I didn't. And eventually my body settled, and eventually I guess my body just took some energy from me. But it was a lesson learned. And I'm happy that it was a lesson I learned early on. So for those of you who might still be drinking artificially sweetened drinks, my first suggestion to you is stop. Transition to something else that's not sweet. If you're going to struggle with that a little bit, my second suggestion to you is only have that drink attached to a meal. Obviously, if I'm eating and I have some broccoli or some carbohydrates that my body will have to deal with anyways on the plate, my body can manage that story, right? But drinking sweet flavored things in between meals, not a good idea. I'm super curious to know which one of these tips, Wellness Warrior, you maybe surprised you, or if you'd forgotten about and put it back in front of you. Put that in the comments. I would love to know, like, which one stood out to you as like, oh wow, I wasn't even thinking about that. Or maybe you have thought about it, but not in the way that I talked about it today. I would love to know if this impacted you in some way. You can go to wellnesssquad.org. It's like, where is it? It's coming up like right there. If you want to join the community and like have a place to talk to each other a bit more off of YouTube, and also talk to me, and let's like answer some questions. And I'm trying a new thing where I'm going to be answering some questions over there in videos. So if you want to see how that works, you can go over there and drop me a question, and I will jump on and try to answer. I want to try to answer one for Wednesday coming. So looking for some interesting questions that I can talk to. And I want to celebrate the wellness warriors that made it to this part of the video. So you want to be like one of these guys on the screen, because you're taking your health seriously, yourself seriously. You're moving yourself towards a better life for yourself. So put #prioritize_health in the comments, and you can have your comment showcased at the end of another one of the videos. And there are 3 key ideas from this video's list today that I found to be vital to success. And they're linked in a video that I have in the description. And they're going to be on the screen at the end of the screen, at the end of this video. So click on the link, and I'm going to see you guys over in that next video. Have a good rest of your day, guys.